I thrifted this absolutely incredible vintage buffet or bar a few months ago, and as soon as I saw it in the thrift store, I knew that I needed to paint it in some really loud, sort of obnoxious color, but it's been just sitting to the side in the garage here for that long because I've been super indecisive on what exactly that color should be. And then while I was waiting in line to check out at the grocery store yesterday, I saw this HGTV magazine and I knew this thing needed to be bright lemon yellow. So this thing is mostly particle board with some oak veneer over top, and then the details and trim on the door are all molded plastic. There appears to have been a serious issue with how the door was attached at some point, and this repair is pretty extreme, but I don't actually think it's as bad as it looks. I love all the detailed ornamentation on here. The kind of pagoda style flares on the top and these brass rails on the shelves are incredible. Inside of this cupboard has some really nice tall storage. Bottles would fit in there well, and it's got a felt lined flatware drawer. It's completely finished on the back too, so this piece could stand alone in a room and doesn't necessarily have to be pushed up against a wall. The finish along the bottom has seen better days, and there's a big chunk out of the front edge. It's a really versatile piece of furniture though, and I think it can totally handle a bold color choice and be the center of attention in a space. As always, I'm gonna start with a good deep clean with some degreaser to break up any dirt, oils, or residue that's on the surface from furniture polishes over the years. Get myself a nice clean slate, and I'll also start just deconstructing things, taking things apart as I'm doing that. And just in case you're not sold on my yellow suggestion yet, here's some more inspiration that I found on Pinterest. On its own, painting something bright yellow can definitely be intimidating, but I think it's important to remember that furniture is a piece of the puzzle. It's an element that's there to be a functional piece of decor that adds to a space's overall design. So it's okay to make it quirky sometimes. I've popped my little scrub brush drill attachment into my drill to help me get a good scrub on, and I'm gonna spray each surface down with this simple green to cut through any of the junk that's on here. May as well just take this door off now. What's happening in here? I have to take the drawer out. Excuse me, sir, but you are in the way. Okay. Nope, battery's dead. No, for real. I'm out of juice. Out of juice. Break out the big guns. Whoops, too much juice. Can you cooperate, please? Please cooperate. No, no, hey? Nope. Get out. Haha. I win. It looks like at some point this front piece of trim had come away, and this is what the hinges are screwed onto. So these big bolts that we're sticking through were just to hold the hinges on there, and then the blue screws down the front with a whole lot of wood glue in here were the attempt to reattach this piece. Yeah, I think I think we're okay. It actually feels like it's totally secure there, and the glue is probably more than enough to hold it. So I'm gonna keep cleaning and I'll reassess after that, but I think I might actually be able to just fill in all these holes with some Bondo and reattach the door with some more appropriate size fasteners the way it was intended to be from the start. The old plastic on this magnetic catch just crumbled as I unscrewed it, so I'm gonna have to find a new one to replace that. And I don't think the handle on the door is original, but it does fit the original holes, and I can paint it to match and blend into the rest of this panel, so I'm gonna be reusing it. So it's not sitting evenly on the floor, it's tilting forward a bit, so I suspect there's some missing foot situation happening underneath, and I need to tip it over anyway so that I can unscrew the brass rails. So I'm just gonna lay down a drop cloth to lay it on so that I don't mess up the backside on my rough garage floor. We have wheels, one of which is completely detached from its corner and wedged underneath here. Made in Canada, and a packing slip. What does this say? Pepler, Division of Sklar Furniture Limited, Hanover, Ontario. Style 610, server. It's a server. No date on it though. Cool. I am gonna pry off these two surviving wheels though, just so that it's all sitting nice and level while I'm working on it. And I can clean all four up and put them back at the end. To fill in the big chunk on the front corner and all of the unnecessary screw holes from that door repair, I'm mixing up some of this epoxy putty. It's a two-part product, and all you do is cut off a chunk the size you're gonna need and then mix it together until it becomes one uniform color. Then you can smush it into or onto whatever you need, and it will cure up to be rock solid and sandable in about 15 minutes. I also wanted to fill in these large seams in the skirting trim because they'll be pretty noticeable once this is all painted. So I'm just using a little bit of regular wood filler for this. And since this stuff is water-based, I can just wipe off the excess with my wet rinsing rag so I won't have to sand it later. Speaking of sanding though, that is always a necessary step with furniture. So I put my dust mask on and stuck some 180 grit sandpaper onto my sander so that I could remove any of the original finish that was already flaking away, scuff up what was still in good condition so that my primer has a good surface to grab onto, and buff out any shallow scratches or dents. This panel on the top is plastic, so you can put warm or wet dishes and not have it affect the particle board underneath. But I don't really want a big black blob in the middle of my new design, so I'm going to be painting right over this. Once my scuff sand was done, I used a damp microfiber rag to pick up any dust that was left on the surface. I had a spray bottle with some water and alcohol to help grab the dust, but if you had any exposed particle board or MDF that was going to want to absorb that moisture, you would want to skip this and just dust it off with something dry. There we go, that's better. I don't want to get any primer or paint on these two rails that the drawers slide in and out on, just because it'll make it harder to use. So I'm going to mask those off with a little bit of tape, and then I should be ready to prime. I'm going to use a different primer than usual today because I really want the ease of being able to spray it, and the shellac stuff that I prefer is a pain to clean out of my sprayer. So this water-based formula from Kills is taking its place. I put a paint filter into my gun, gave the can a good shake, and then strained in about half a pint of this stuff. Next, I turned the air pressure from my compressor down to about 40 PSI, pulled out enough hose to get around the garage, and hooked everything up. I like to test out all of my settings on a piece of cardboard to make sure that I like how things are flowing. And once I've got it all dialed in, I can move over to my piece. This is an Alkyd primer, which basically means it's got all of the qualities and performance of an oil or shellac-based product, but it's in a lower VOC, soap and water, easy cleanup formula. And this step of priming serves a couple of important functions. First, it's going to make a strong bond to the surface underneath and allow the paint that I put on top to make a strong bond to it. That helps prevent chipping and peeling down the line. Second, it's going to block in any tannins in the wood from bleeding up and staining my new finish. Those stains can happen immediately or over the course of a few weeks. So I usually think it's a good idea to prime no matter what, so you can avoid any surprises. The other thing it does is seal up any porous spots, like where I sanded through the original finish to smooth something out, or where there's wood filler, so that the paint will sit evenly and look even across all those different textures. I can already see some bleed through pulling up on the sides and where I sanded a little bit deeper on the top. And this is the texture difference that I was explaining. My second coat of primer should be enough to rectify both of those though. I'm gonna let this first coat dry for about an hour, and then I'll come back and do a little scratch test on the plastic top and the door panels. And once I'm sure that everything is stuck well, I can get my second coat going. Once all the priming was done, I cleaned out my sprayer in the laundry room sink just with some warm water and a scrub brush and put myself to bed. All right, my primer has had all night to dry, so now I'm gonna head over to Home Depot and pick up some paint. I've been using Behr's Alkyd enamel for a few years now, and every time I use it, I fall a little more in love. It's relatively cheap compared to other specialty furniture or cabinetry paints. I can have it mixed in whatever color I can imagine. It's rated interior, exterior use, doesn't need any additional top coat to be super tough and durable, and it brushes, rolls, and sprays beautifully. All right, I got my paint. We're going with Squash Blossom Yellow. But before I spray that on, I just want to give the primer a quick smooth out with some 400 grit sandpaper. Again, I strained about a pint of this into my hopper. Even in brand new cans of paint, you can still get little clumps or globs of stuff. And if those go through your spray nozzle, it will ruin your day. So I have learned the hard way to always filter my paint. I've also found that adding about a tablespoon of water to this helps it flow a lot better. So I did that too. I sprayed this on the same way as my primer, making sure that I wasn't applying too much, especially on the vertical surfaces, because this paint stays wet a little bit longer than normal, so it can level itself out nice and smooth. So if you put on too much, it will drip. I couldn't really turn or tilt my gun as much as I needed to in these cubbies to get a good layer of paint on the sides. So I ended up pouring some paint into a tray and just using a 4-inch roller to get in there. Once I had everything coated, I wrapped up the tray and roller in a plastic bag to keep it from drying out, and then turned on my box fan to keep the air in the garage circulating while I waited for the 4-hour recoat window to pass. I finished with my first coat at 11:30 in the morning. So at 4 p.m., I came back out for coat number 2. I left my sprayer loaded up and just wiped the tip off with a little bit of acetone to get the dried up scab of paint off when I was ready to start spraying again. I definitely understand that spraying isn't an option for most people, but like I said, this particular paint does brush and roll really nicely as well. So if you need to work on a project like this a little bit at a time in whatever space you've got, you 100% can do that too. I started my entire furniture flipping business with a brush, a roller, and a sanding block in my living room. I've been there. I got 2 good coats on this yesterday, but yellow pigments are more translucent by nature, so I want to do a 3rd coat just to make sure that I've got really good saturation of the color and coverage. I'm just going to give everything a light sand with some 400 grit sandpaper to knock off any of the little flies that landed in here last night and any rough spots, although this is feeling really silky smooth. And then I'm going to spray on my last coat of paint, let it dry, and I can put things back together. After I finished with the 3rd coat, I just left this thing to chill and dry for the rest of the day. And then when I thought it was ready for a little bit of handling, I screwed the handle and the hinges onto the door so that I could rehang it. I hate installing hinges. Hate it, hate it, hate it. Like that. And then that is inside the cabinet, right? I think. I think. Need a new magnetic catch to replace this broken one. Pretty sure I have one. There we go. I think I'm going to install the door with the bottom hinge, or at least get 1 or 2 screws in there. And then I should be able to mark out where I need my new screw holes on the top hinge. I've got a little drill bit to drill some pilot holes, and we'll get this door rehung. Screw, driver, everybody stay still. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Please close. I used a little bit of antique gold rub and buff to shine up these rails. I left lots of original patina on there, but it just made them look a little bit fresher. And then I screwed those back in place as well. To finish things off, I brushed a little bit of leftover navy paint on the front of the drawer and the back of the door because it matched the felt liner, but I ended up not loving how primary it all looked. So I opted to swap that out for some lemony peel and stick wallpaper that I've had for drawer liners for a while now. Let's go back to the beginning for a second and remind ourselves of how this piece started off. $40 at the thrift store with a bit of a tired finish, a mess of a door repair, and a whole lot of potential. And now it looks like this. Again, furniture pieces are a fantastic way to add some fun into your decor along with their function. They don't always have to be neutral. And at the end of the day, it's just paint. And paint can always be changed along with our mood or style. I think it's an amazing thing to be able to live in a home surrounded by stuff that brings us joy. And this little server is looking pretty freaking joyful now. I know it's not a choice for the general masses, but that was kind of the point. Anyway, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments, and I'd also really like to know how you would price this if you were to list it for sale. So let her rip, and I'll catch you all next time.